Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be breaking down volume 1 of the comic Lazarus, and I'm going to be covering this series over the next several weeks. So I wanted to break down this book because I'm a fan of it. I think it is really fun. And apparently Amazon bought the rights and they're potentially working on an adaptation, so maybe one day we'll see this as a TV show on Prime Video. Although, who knows, maybe it will just be in development hell forever and never see the light of day. But I'm hoping it gets to be made into a TV show. So yeah, this is a pretty fun book. It's set in the future of our world, and the future is a little dystopian. There's no more world governments. Instead, 16 rich, powerful families rule the world, and they have kind of divided the world into various domains, various fiefdoms, which they lead, and then they have serfs that serve them, and then the rest of the peasants there in the world. And in a little bit of a sci-fi kind of twist, every family has one person called a Lazarus. And these Lazarus are like super soldiers. They've been genetically altered, and they kind of defend their family. And so that's kind of a fun little twist to have these Lazarus people out there. So yeah, this is a pretty fun book. There is lots of world building and lore. If you read the individual issues or the trade paperbacks at the back, there's all this supplemental material with like timelines of how the world became the way it is. There's also these source books that were put out, really breaking down all the various families and what their deal is. There's lots of maps and shit. So if you really want to envelop yourself into the lore, there is a lot out there, which is kind of fun. But for now, let's dive into volume 1 and see how the story goes, meet some of these Lazarus and some of the families, and see the ultimate struggle that is going to happen. So let's dive into it. Lazarus, Volume 1, written by Greg Rucka, art by Michael Lark, colors by Santi Arcas. Lazarus background information. Lazarus is set far in our future. The specific year relative to ours is not stated, but the year is referred to as X64. So it is 64 years after the beginning of Year X. There was unrest around the world, and the heads of the 16 most financially powerful families from around the globe gathered in Macau to establish rules which would solidify their holdings. The negotiations resulted in the Macau Accords, effectively marking the end of government control of the world, and the 16 families declared then Year X to commemorate a fresh start for the world and to put the ghosts of failed government in the past. The world in the future now lies divided, not amongst political or geographical boundaries, but amongst financial ones. Wealth is power, and that power rests with only a handful of families, 16 families. And these 16 families rule the world, each of them having domain over a certain region. They rule their regions almost like mini fiefdoms, where they are the ruling class. The few in the regions that provide a service for their ruling family are cared for. They are called serfs. All others are known as waste. In each family, there is one person given the best they can offer: training and technology and assets, every scientific advantage. They are almost made into a super soldier of sorts. This person is named their family's sword and shield, their protector, their Lazarus. The main family we will be following throughout this series is known as the Carlyle family. The Carlyle's Lazarus is named Forever Carlyle, also known as Eve. This is her story. The Carlyle family is one of the main families that rule the world. The head of their family is Malcolm Carlyle. The Carlyles have access to a technology they developed that helped them stay young and put off aging. Malcolm is actually 109 years old. Malcolm has a wife named Abigail Carlyle, and Malcolm has several children. His eldest son, Stephen, his oldest daughter, Bethany, and the twins, Jonah and Johanna. And beyond them, there was also Forever Carlyle, aka Eve, the family's Lazarus. They refer to Forever as being family, being a sister to the other siblings. But she is not actually their real sister. The mystery of Forever Carlyle is going to be a big plot thread throughout this series, so we will learn over time what the mystery is. The Carlyle's domain is the western side of the United States, so everything west of Mississippi. They also have Western Canada, everything west of the province of Ontario. They also have Alaska and Hawaii, although their borders in Alaska are in conflict with the Vasilovka family, and their borders in the eastern US are in conflict with the Hawk family. Alright, I think that's enough introduction. Let us begin with Lazarus, Issue 1, Family, Part 1 of 4. Over in the Carlyle's territory, some poor waste have broken into a complex, and they are trying to steal some food. The Carlyle's Lazarus, Forever Carlyle, tried to stop these men. In the course of trying to stop these men, Forever got shot multiple times and she went down. She lied dead on the floor, her blood pouring out. The three robbers assumed her gone and they continued on with their thieving. But after about 1 minute, or maybe 2, Forever recovered and she woke back up. She walked back over to the men that killed her mere moments ago and she killed them all brutally, twisting one of their necks and stabbing a sword into the others. She killed them all. Afterwards, Forever went back home. The Carlyle's chief scientist, Dr. James Mann, debriefed Forever and also inspected her body, making sure it was still fully calibrated. Forever, talking to James, felt a little bad. She said, "Those men, they only wanted something to eat." James answered, "The family provides food for all citizens, as you know. If they're documented residents of the domain, they receive their allowance. They broke into a family residence, Forever. Unused, yes, but still family property. They picked a low-security location. They came armed, and then they tried to kill you. Have you considered what would have happened if you hadn't been the one to encounter them? What if they'd run into your siblings, or, God forbid, your parents? We're lucky it was you." After Forever's medical examination is done, Forever asks James, "Does everyone feel like this when they have to kill someone, I mean, this is normal, right? To feel like this?" James answered, "No, Eve, they don't. Don't let it worry you. I'll give you something to help with it." Forever thanks James, and she asks him, "You won't tell my family what we talked about, will you, James? Father or Jonah or anyone?" James, he answered, "No, of course not. I would never betray your confidence. I promise you." Later on, over in Central California, one of the Carlyle children, Jonah Carlyle, gets a call from the scientist, James Mann. James totally betrays Forever's confidence and tells Jonah exactly what they talked about. James tells Jonah, physically Forever's fine, she's in full recovery, but it's her emotional state I'm worried about. She's asking some problematic questions. Jonah asks, "Again? You were supposed to take care of that, James." James responds, "I'm including another oxytocin bumper with the blood spin, but it needs to be reinforced this time, Jonah. It won't work if there's no one for her to bond with. Show her some love." Just as that conversation wraps up, Forever arrives in a helicopter to meet her brother, Jonah. Jonah greets his sister, Forever, warmly. He hugs her and tells her, "I heard about what happened at the guest house. Thank God you're all right." The two of them then head out to a nearby facility, a seed vault. The Carlyle family produces genetically modified seeds to help grow crops. These seeds are valuable intellectual property and could be valuable to others around the world. Apparently there was an attack on this seed vault and a whole bunch of people were killed, and someone was trying to rob something from it. Forever and Jonah question some of the soldiers behind and ask what happened. One of the soldiers explained that there was no sign of system fault, which meant it was shut down, not sabotaged, not hacked. It was shut down, so someone from the inside must have done it. Jonah, hearing this outrage, says, we've been betrayed. Forever tells her brother, you're jumping to conclusions. One of the soldiers there asks Forever, ma'am, forgive me for asking this, but we heard what happened to you, that you were attacked recently. Do you think this assault on you was connected? Forever answers, I don't. I was attacked by waste, not soldiers. Forever then questions, so we're positive this attack was Murray? Murray is the name of another family. The Murray family. Their domain is Mexico and Central America and portions of the Caribbean. Their leader is a man named Edgar Murray. For the most part, the Murrays and the Carlyles are somewhat allies, but could the Murrays have been behind the attack on this facility? Forever, she asks the soldier, we're positive it was Murray? And the soldier answered, we took one of them alive. Forever said she wanted to talk to the person they took. But Jonah informs her sister, you can't, she didn't survive the interrogation. Jonah, he then says, they came for the grain Forever. They practically walked in through the door. A door one of our people opened for them. The only people who could have opened the vault are senior technical staff. Forever cuts in and says, or one of us. Jonah rebuttals, you're not seriously accusing one of our family. We have been betrayed Forever, and you know what Father would demand on you if he was here. We have to send a message. Some of your soldiers died here today. You know what you have to do. You know what's expected of you. Forever doesn't like it, but she has to make an example of someone. Forever orders the man here, please assemble the senior technical staff in the courtyard. So all of the technical staff that work in this facility were brought out and asked to stand in a line. Forever addressed the crowd, saying, I beg you to listen to me carefully. In light of last night's attack, we have concluded that someone within the facility was in collusion with Murray forces. Someone who had clearance to disable the security on the cold vaults. One of you. My father's policy regarding betrayal is unequivocal on this matter, as you know. He requires an example must be made. A confession will spare your families and your colleagues, but if no one claims responsibility for this act of treason, I have no choice but to execute all of you to serve as a warning to others. All the senior technical staff in the crowd do not answer. They don't say anything. No one wants to speak up. Jonah Carlyle, he then tells his sister, all right, fine, line them up and shoot them. Eventually, an old man in the crowd named Samuel Rosales, he steps up and says, I did it. It was me. Samuel's daughter, Caddy Rosales, tells her dad, don't. Sam responds to his daughter, you be quiet, Caddy. Let this be what this will be. I did it, you understand me? It was me. Jonah tells his sister, Forever, you know what to do. Sam, he steps up to take his punishment, a shot in the back of his head, ending his life. Before Forever kills Sam, she tells him, I think you're lying, sir. I don't think you are responsible for this. Sam tells Forever, does it matter? Forever angry says, of course it matters. It matters if you're innocent. It matters if there's still a traitor in our house. Why would you throw your life away? Samuel, the old man, answered, you, your brother, you're kind. You talk a lot about family. If that word meant anything to you, you'd know the answer already. Forever, now pointing the gun to Samuel's head, tells Sam, your daughter. I'll tell her you love her. Sam to this says, trust me, Miss Carlyle. She knows. Later on, Forever returns back to the lab for James Mann to test her some more. James, he then mixes the cocktail of pills that Forever usually takes. Gives her a chemical combination that will make her a little bit more loyal and maybe push down those thoughts she was having about being against killing and whatnot. James tells Forever, there we go, done. You'll have some tingling for the next hour or so, nothing to worry about. I heard about the unpleasantness earlier at Harvest 1. You did what you had to do for your family. You know that, of course, but in light of our talk this morning, I have to ask, how are you feeling? Forever, now on the new mix of pills, says, "Fine, James. I feel fine." All those negative, conflicted thoughts she had earlier have been successfully pushed down. Lazarus, Issue 2, Family, Part 2 of 4. Later on, we see Forever is visiting her sister, Bethany Carlyle, in Puget Sound, which is in Washington State. Bethany Carlyle, along with James, are responsible for maintaining Forever's body. As the family's Lazarus, Forever is very important, and it is vital that she is operating at peak efficiency. Bethany tells Forever, "Forever, I've got your regimen laid out." We see a whole bunch of pills spread out on this table. These are pills that Forever must take daily. Some of them help her healing factor and make her stronger, and some of them also help control her and make Forever love her family and remain loyal to them and do what they say. Forever tells Bethany, "I'll take the pills later." Bethany responds, "No, you'll take them now, little sister. What have James and I told you about messing with your maintenance schedule?" Forever to this says, "Ugh, I hate it when you call it that. It makes me feel like a machine." Bethany, assessing her sister, asks, "Any residual pain, problems breathing, soreness, pain in motion?" Forever answers no to all of these questions. Beth then injects Forever with something in her arm and then tells her, "Get dressed, pills are on the dresser. Father wants you in the study in 5 minutes for your report." A few minutes later in the family study, all the many members of the Carlyle family are meeting to discuss matters. Jonah is still pushing to everyone that the Murray family was behind the recent attack in their territory. Jonah states, "We're already at war with them, whether Father wants to acknowledge it or not." Stephen, the older brother, replies to Jonah, "We'll see what Father says." Jonah quips back to his older brother, "You really don't have a thought in your head you haven't run past the old man first, do you, Steve?" Steve responds, "Screw you, Jonah. You think I don't know what you and Johanna are up to in LA? And I mean everything you two are up to." Jonah yells back to Stephen, "You say another word, I'll break your frickin' neck." As they are arguing, Malcolm Carlyle, the head of the family, walks in, along with Bethany. Malcolm sternly says to Jonah and Stephen, "We have serious matters to discuss, and I will not have my sons acting like they're 6 instead of 60. Am I understood?" Remember, all the Carlyle family are on some sort of longevity pills, so they're actually way older than they appear to look. The father, Malcolm, asks, "Where's Johanna? Where is she, Jonah?" Jonah answers, She thought she would stay in the Palisades residence, sir, in case Murray tried to start anything with the waste." Malcolm, annoyed, says, "Will you tell her that the next time I call a family meeting, it includes her, unless she no longer wishes to be Carlyle." Finally, Forever enters the room, and the discussion begins. Forever gives a briefing on the recent attack in their territory that her and Jonah investigated. Forever states, "At 03:22 hours yesterday morning, a Murray strike team assaulted Harvest 1. They evaded early warning systems and breached the compound before an alarm could be raised. Our forces mustered a defense and repelled the assault. Their objective was the seed vaults. Carlyle losses, our losses, they were substantial. A man named Samuel Rosales confessed to disabling security and claimed he was an agent of Family Murray. Following his execution for treason, his belongings were confiscated, and the lodgings where he lived with his daughter, one of the staff researchers, were searched. I can find no evidence as to how he was recruited by Murray, nor how he communicated with them." This then ended Forever's briefing. Malcolm thanked his daughter Forever, and then asked everyone, "All right, what are everyone's thoughts? They talk about this caddy, Rosales, the daughter of Samuel, the man that confessed. Forever explains, Caddy Rosales, she was born in the early 30s, tested in 42, scored high for technical aptitude and mean intelligence. She was subsequently lifted and sent for education at Stanford, trained in biotechnology, specifically agricultural genetics, assigned to Harvest 1 last year. Nothing else of note, no reprimands, no cautions, and no indications of subversive leanings. Stephen, he then theorizes that, we broke off trade with Moray 5 years ago, and the word is their harvests have suffered ever since, and they're having trouble controlling their waste. It's certainly plausible they would go after our seeds. Jonah, he chimes in, it's not plausible, Stephen, it's certain. Their soil is fallow, it's frickin' dead, without our strains to grow in it. Look, we know who did it, and we know why they did it. The only question is what we're going to do about it. Jonah suggests they go to war. Malcolm, he thinks on it, and he sends everyone else out of the room, except for Forever. He tells her to remain. Malcolm then asks Forever, you don't believe this Samuel Rosales' confession, do you? Forever answers, no, sir. Malcolm asks, you executed him for treason. Why did you do that if you didn't believe him? Forever, she looked down, and eventually she answered, I didn't want to. Malcolm says, but you did it anyway, and I want to know why. Did it feel good? Did you like it? Did you want to see him bleed? Did it make you feel strong, killing an unarmed old man? Forever yells out, I had to! It was treason means death, and Jonah made me do it. He was going to execute everyone if he didn't get a confession. Malcolm then looks out the window and says to himself, oh, Jonah, you foolish boy. 5 children and only one of them is worth a damn. Come here, Eve. There's something your father needs you to do for your family. While Malcolm and Forever are talking in the study, meanwhile in the kitchen, Bethany, Jonah, and Stephen are discussing. Jonah, seeming agitated, says, how long is Forever gonna be in there with him? Stephen asks, are you jealous? Jonah continues, this is family business. She shouldn't even be in there. She's not even his real daughter. She's just... Bethany tells Jonah, shut your frickin' mouth, Jonah. You don't say it. You don't even think it anywhere she could possibly hear. Do you know what happens if she learns what she really is? The questions she'll start to ask? Jonah responds, so she learns the truth and goes bugfuck crazy. Big deal. We put her down, and then you and James will make another one. This really pisses Bethany off. She grabs Jonah and slams him down at the table, and then she grabs a knife for cutting fruit and threatens to stab Jonah with it. As things are starting to get really heated, Stephen steps in and tries to separate his 2 siblings. Eventually, they do get separated. Jonah yells, keep her away from me! A maid enters the kitchen. Jonah asks, what do you want? The maid responds, I'm sorry, sir, your mother... Jonah slaps the plate out of the maid's hand and yells at her to get out. Forever finally enters the kitchen. She tells Stephen that father wants to speak with him in the study. Bethany, she is free to get back to her work, and Forever then tells Jonah, I'm to accompany you back to Los Angeles. We're to leave immediately. Later on, we see Forever and Jonah arrive in Los Angeles. They are being driven around in a convoy. Los Angeles is apparently Jonah's domain. Forever, looking out the window at the wreck that is Los Angeles, tells Jonah, your domain looks like a war zone, brother. Jonah to this says, we rebuilt what the family needs. There's no point in wasting resources on waste who can't appreciate it. What did you and father talk about? Forever gives an ominous answer saying, he asked me to do something for our family. Later on, we see Jonah goes to speak with his sister, Johanna, his twin. Johanna was the one sibling that didn't even bother showing up to their family meeting earlier. Johanna asks Jonah, why is Forever here? Jonah answered, I don't know, and she won't tell me. Johanna questions, what do you mean she won't tell you? She doesn't have a choice. It's in her frickin' genes to do what we want. Jonah answers, Father must have ordered her not to tell anyone, not even other family. Father asked why you weren't at the meeting earlier. I told him you were worried about security following the Murray attack. Johanna tells her brother, Forever is the problem right now, not Father. We're going to need to keep an eye on her. Find out why the little perversion is here, how much she knows, if Father is suspicious of us. I've got Gabriel Mason watching her. So it appears that Jonah and Johanna have some sort of scheme, some sort of ulterior motive. Perhaps they are trying to push their family into war with the Murray family. It is hard to say, but either way, they do have some sort of ulterior motives, and they are a little bit worried their father is suspicious of them, and they do not trust their other sister, Forever. Later on, we see Forever walking through the Los Angeles streets. Johanna's goon, Gabriel Mason, is tailing her, trying to track her whereabouts and what she is doing. Gabriel follows her for a while, but eventually Forever manages to lose Mason, and Mason is then given a piece of paper that Forever gave to some children, and the children gave to Mason. On the piece of paper it reads, Mason, if you keep following me, I'm going to kill you. Forever, now free of her tail, hops on a motorcycle and she drives all the way down to Mexico, to Murray territory. As she is driving down the road to Murray, she is eventually stopped by a whole bunch of Murray troops pointing guns at her, and she is also greeted by the Murray's Lazarus, Joachim Murray. Joachim, greeting Forever, says, Your father is very stupid or very bold to send his Lazarus to us like this. It doesn't really matter. You are now a prisoner of family Murray forever. Lazarus, Issue 3, Family, Part 3 of 4. Forever Carlyle, the Lazarus of the Carlyle family, has been sent to Mexico to parley with the Murray family. Joachim Murray, the Lazarus for the Murray family, escorts Forever. When they arrive at the Murray family compound, some of the other soldiers do not pay Forever the same respect that Joachim does. The soldier orders Forever, You will surrender your weapons and submit to a search. Forever replied, I will not. The soldier continued, You will surrender your weapons and submit to a search, or you will be restrained and we will do it by force. Forever, confident, not willing to take shit, says, Try it. Joachim, the Murray family Lazarus, warns the soldier, I would advise against trying to place an uninvited hand on Miss Carlyle. She is our guest, for now, and we will accord her the courtesy she is due. The Murray soldier, not willing to back down, replies, The capture of an identified enemy Lazarus is of the highest priority. She is a prisoner, not a guest. Joachim whispers to Forever, saying, He's arguing with me. Forever to this says, Yeah, he is. Joachim invites the soldier to, do his duty. The soldier asks for Forever's gun. She hands it over. Then he asks for Forever's blade. Forever's sword is sentimentally important to her, and she refuses. She says no. The soldier then points a gun at Forever and insists, saying, Your blade. Forever does nothing, and then the soldier repeats again, Your blade. And then Forever uses her blade and slices off the soldier's hand. And then she answers, No. The soldier then falls to his knees and screams out, Mother of God, my arm! Oh God! Joachim tells the soldier with the missing hand, You are a waste, raised to service, but you challenge my authority in front of your men? I am the Murray Lazarus. I am the arm of my family, and your ambition, Sergeant, outweighed your senses. Joachim then decapitates the soldier and points to another soldier in the room and tells him, You are now elevated to the rank of sergeant. Get this cleaned up and prepare for inspection. My uncle will be arriving soon. Back at the Carlyle compound, the scientist that tracks Forever gets a call from Jonah Carlyle. Jonah asks for the location of Forever. He wants to know where she is. James says that he can't give that information. Jonah to this says, "Oh, don't give me that bullshit. You track her all the time. Jesus, you and Beth never shut up about Forever's telemetry and shit like that." James replies, "I didn't say I'm not tracking her, Jonah. I just said I can't tell you where she is." Jonah, now a little upset, asks, "This is my father, isn't it? He told you not to tell me." James, he doesn't answer and just says, "I have work to do." Once James finishes with his phone call with Jonah, he phones Malcolm Carlyle and gives him an update on where Forever is and how she is at the Moray outpost in Mexico. Back down in Mexico, the two Lazarus are talking. Forever and Joaquim seem to be on friendly terms. They are eating some guava fruit, and Joaquim asks if Forever is allowed to eat this, as he assumes that her diet is very restrictive like his is. Lazarus have to have particular diets in order to operate at maximum efficiency. Forever says, yep, she's allowed to eat that. They share some food, and then they discuss the last time the two of them met. Forever explains, "Oh, it was when the talks broke down 5 years ago. I was 14 years old then." Joaquim comments, "Truly? I imagined you older." Forever replies, "I was very mature for my age." Joaquim then shares, "My uncle, he told me to kill you first if the talks went wrong." Forever to this says, "My father said something similar about you. You know, you were the first person like me I'd ever met." Another Lazarus. Joaquim then, flirting a bit, says, "Well, you've turned into a beautiful woman." Forever to this says, "Stop." Joaquim says he means it. Forever comments that Joaquim doesn't look like he's changed that much since she last saw him. Joaquim to this says, "Yeah, well, they put me back together a few times since then. I think they make us fight so they don't have to." Forever tells Joaquim, "You know, I don't want to fight you. I don't want to hurt you." Joaquim shares a similar sentiment, saying, "Yeah, our families, they just don't understand." Forever to this says, "No, they don't." Forever and Joaquim then get a little closer, sort of leaning in to maybe kiss each other, but then they get interrupted. A helicopter lands out in the field, and it is Edgar Moray, the head of the Moray family. Back in Los Angeles, the two Carlyle twins, Jonah and Johanna, are talking. It turns out the two of them were scheming, trying to push Carlyle into war with Moray. Jonah expresses how he is worried. Initially, they just wanted their father to go right to war, but now it seems like he's sent Forever to Mexico to parlay. And if she parlays with Moray, then war may be averted. Johanna, she thinks on it and tells her brother, if father sent Forever to parlay, he's conducting negotiations via back channel. Forever won't compromise family communications. She can't report back to father until she's back in Carlyle territory. So, all we gotta do is kill her before she reports back and blame it on Moray. Father then will have no choice but to declare war. Boom, done. I mean, really, brother, it's not that hard to track, is it? Jonah, he thinks on it and tells his sister, it won't work. She's a frickin' Lazarus. She can't be killed, remember? Johanna argues, of course she can. She dies like they all do. It's why they wear those silly swords. Just make the pieces small enough and there's nothing left to rebuild. Boom, like I said. Alright, Jonah's coming around on the plan. He says that they'll have to hit her the second she's back in their territory. He's gonna put Gabriel Mason on it. He's gonna tell them to mobilize an assault team and double surveillance along the border. Johanna adds, a sniper and a headshot could resolve all our problems, Jonah. Back down in Mexico, Edgar Moray, the head of the Moray family, is with Joaquim and one of his associates, and they are parlaying with Forever. Edgar tells Forever he is willing to hear her out because they still remember and respect the Accords of Macau, and they respect Forever's father, despite all that has happened between their families. He also warns, though, that they will not roll over, so before Forever speaks, it must be made clear, if she is here to declare war, then she will be the first of her family to die, and not by far the last. Forever, it is now her turn to speak. She says, "I am Carlyle, Mr. Murray. These are the words of my father." He speaks as such. "Greetings, Edgar, and to your son, Brian, and to your radiant bride, Anne Maria, and to the whole of your family. Murray's strength does you honor, but you cannot dine on strength. Your people starve, unrest is on the rise. By our projections, your domain will face an uprising before the end of the year. At best, you will be weakened. At worst, your domain will fall. Carlyle offers normalization of trade with Murray, grain and seed shipments to resume immediately. In exchange, Murray agrees to the following." Forever then lists a whole bunch of military things her family wants, tanks and things like that. Forever, she then continues her demands, saying, "Second and last, my father speaks. You agree to immediately seize any and all communication with our youngest son, Jonah, whose treachery is known to us, as is your collusion with him. This is the Carlyle message to Murray. I am to relay your reply." Murray and Forever negotiate terms a bit. Murray says some of the tanks and things that Carlyle wants will take a little bit longer. Also, Murray wants a couple of different strains of seeds and grains for their crops. But eventually they come to satisfactory terms. Forever, she then asks, "And to the second point?" Edgar Murray to this says, "Your brother is as dead to us as he is to you." Murray agrees. Forever, she responds, "Carlyle agrees." Edgar then has a smile on his face and he says, "Good. Then this business is concluded. Can we persuade you to stay for dinner, Miss Carlyle? At least to share a drink with me and my son?" Forever responds that it is a gracious offer, but she really must be getting back and relay the message to her father. Edgar, he understands. He orders Joachim to escort Forever out of their domain, and they will leave at once. Joachim replies, "Of course, uncle. It will be my pleasure." Forever, riding on a motorcycle, and Joachim in his own car, drive down the highway out of Mexico. They drive, and then eventually they cross the border, separating the Murray and Carlyle domain. Joachim, he then stops his car. Forever, she stops too. She asks, "Is there a problem?" Joachim answers, "No problem, none at all. The GPS says we crossed into your family's domain, and since it may be another 5 years before I get to see you again, I thought we might perhaps take a moment, share a drink of water and a sunset, a moment for saying goodbye." Forever, she joins Joachim sitting on his car, and they watch the sunset. And as they are sitting there admiring the sunset, the two of them start hearing a noise. And all of a sudden, a plane flying above in the sky that is on orders of Johanna and Jonah Carlyle shoots a missile directly at them. The missile blasts the car and it explodes. Lazarus, Issue 4, Family, Part 4 of 4. We jump back over to the scientist, James Mann. He is with Bethany Carlyle, and he is monitoring Forever Carlyle's vital signs. Everything was going fine, but then the missile hit Forever, and alarms started going off in the lab where James and Bethany were. Bethany says she has to phone her father. James, he wonders, why would Murray attack her on the way home? Meanwhile, over in Los Angeles, in their own little bunker, Jonah and Gabriel are there remotely monitoring the progress on their assassination of Forever. Although the remote cameras they are watching to get an eye on Forever are jamming, so they're having a hard time getting clear visuals. Back at the Carlyle-Murray border, Joachim and Forever were blown and hit with the missile. Forever is lying on the ground. She is still alive, though. It is very hard to kill a Lazarus. A whole bunch of the soldiers that Jonah hired to kill his sister arrive in helicopters. Forever, who is starting to get up, sees the soldiers around her and she comments, "You guys, you're Carlyle, your family. What are you doing?" The soldiers pick Forever up. They're going to kill her. Forever tells the soldiers, "I'm giving you an order. I'm Commander Forever Carlyle of the family Carlyle. To disobey me is to die. To strike me is to die. You will release me at once." The soldiers attempt to kill Forever, but her healing factor starts kicking in. She starts regaining her strength, and she starts fighting back. She starts killing the various soldiers that were here to murder her. And as she is fighting them, Joachim, he stands up. We see some of Joachim's skin has been shredded off, and we see he has some sort of metal Terminator type of body beneath. Joachim joins Forever in assisting her in fighting off these soldiers. And after some fighting, they manage to kill them all. While all of this fighting was going down, Jonah was watching in his control room remotely, but the feed was hard to make out what was happening. Gabriel Mason, he left the control room and went to go talk to Johanna and fill her in on how the events were going. He told her, "Miss Carlyle, the feed went down." Johanna, she then had to start making some decisions, and she started to realize that her and her brother's coup and their efforts to push the Carlyle family into war with the Moray family has most likely failed. And Jonah will most likely be seen as a traitor. So now she has to distance herself from her brother. Johanna tells Mason, "I need you to hit me." Gabriel Mason is confused. He questions, "Ma'am?" Johanna, she continues, "Don't be a pussy, Mason. I'm giving you an order." All right, Mason, he's got to follow orders. He punches Johanna in the face. Johanna tells him again, "Like you mean it." Mason hits her again. She looks in the mirror and she says, "It's not enough. It's got to look real. It's got to look like Jonah did it." So Mason beats her some more. Back over in the room where Jonah was, the feed finally goes clear and the signal is good again. The image is resolving and they can finally see what happened to Forever. When the feed is finally clear, Jonah realizes his plan has failed, and their sister is indeed alive. Jonah storms out of the room and he goes over to where his sister's room is. Jonah, he's yelling, "It failed! It fucking failed!" Jonah is now standing in front of Johanna's room, and Mason is blocking his path in front of the door. Jonah tells Mason, "She in there? Let me through, Mason." Mason responds coldly, "No." Jonah, he says, "What did you just say to me? Damn it, move." Mason responds, "Your sister says to tell you that if you start running right now, she'll slow the Lazarus down long enough for you to escape." Jonah at that moment then realizes what is going on. Their coup has failed and his sister is betraying him to save herself. So Jonah, he starts running. He has got to get out of here. Back over to Forever and Joachim. There is a Carlyle helicopter there. Forever tells the pilot, "Prep for takeoff, and if you leave without me, I'm going to carve you open." The pilot answers, "Yes, ma'am." Forever then turns to Joachim and tells him, "This was not an attack on Moray, Joachim. You know that. You know my father would never." Joachim, he cuts her off and says, "Of course." Forever and Joachim say goodbye, and then Forever heads off in the helicopter. She flies over to Los Angeles to confront Jonah and Johanna. Forever storms on over to Gabriel Mason. She asks him, "Where's Jonah? Where's my brother?" Mason answers, "He's gone. He went after your sister. He went after the lady Johanna. He hurt her, Commander." Forever goes in to check on her sister, Johanna, and she finds her beaten. Johanna, who's acting and lying, says, I tried to stop him. I'm not strong like you, and he wouldn't stop hitting me. And then Mason came and Jonah ran. He betrayed us, hasn't he? He betrayed the family." I'm afraid he'll come back forever. I'm afraid he'll hurt me again. Forever comforts her sister and says, No, Joe, no, I won't let him. Later on, Forever phones her father and tells him what she's learned. She explains that Johanna should be there by the morning, and Johanna also asked that Mason accompany her since she couldn't, and Forever said yes. Forever does state, though, that she doesn't trust Mason. He was Jonah's hand for years. She also explains that apparently Mason told Johanna that Jonah had deployed soldiers to the southern border. Johanna went to confront him, and she says that he panicked. He was talking about killing me and killing you and taking over the family, and Jonah beat her pretty bad before Mason could finally stop him. Forever explains she did a preliminary search on the premises, and Jonah stole an aircraft and took off. He was tracked flying east before they lost the signal. Malcolm Carlyle believes that his son is running to their enemy, Jacob Hawk, in the east. Forever asks if she should pursue. Malcolm tells her, not at present. By the way, I've been in touch with Edgar Murray. You did well. I'm proud of you. Now come back here. Is that understood, young lady? Get some rest. And make sure James gives you a full exam in the morning. I'm going to need you at your best in the coming months, Forever. Your family is going to need you. Later on, as Forever arrives home, she checks an email on her computer, and the email is very ominous. It is from an unknown sender, and it reads, He is not your father. This is not your family. And with this, we end Volume 1 of Lazarus. All right, so that was Volume 1 of Lazarus. Let me go through my thoughts on this one and why I dig it. So I did like the artwork. I thought it worked for the story. I thought the world building was kind of interesting. Learning a little bit about these different families and what their deal is. I think the Lazarus are pretty cool. These super soldiers that are like little Terminators out there in the world. It's a little hard to maybe wrap your head around exactly, what the deal with everything is. Like, why do these families only really have one of them? Why not build a whole army of them? But I believe there is some explanation for that, and they're really expensive and hard to produce and whatnot. But yeah, fun trying to figure out the lore of the world and seeing the kind of Game of Thrones type espionage and political intrigue between the different families and the different family members that have different ulterior motives and sort of scheming against their own families. So that was neat. And I did think it also have an interesting mystery with Forever Carlyle, aka Eve, and seeing her journey, trying to understand who she is. And, is her family lying to her? And seeing if she's going to discover the truth of it all and how she is going to react to that truth. So that is a very interesting narrative to help pull us through the story. So I thought this was a great debut volume. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll be back in the future with Volume 2, and we can see how the story continues.